China has long had a history of Confucian, patriarchal tradition, which strongly values male offspring. Strict patrilineal kinship systems place the responsibilities of economic, sociocultural, and religious function on men. Confucianism has also framed traditional Chinese culture, and thus continuity of the family name and property are accorded to sons. This results in a power structure that favors males. In the 1970s, concerns arose over the rapid growth of the Chinese population and the possible effects it could have on rising social, economic, and environmental problems in China. In 1978, China developed its family planning policy, better known to the rest of the world as the one-child policy. Enacted in 1978 by Deng Xiaoping, the policy was meant to decrease fertility rates and lower the burdens of an expanding population on the nation's resources. Unwittingly, the resulting drop in fertility rates has caused concerns with regards to the siring of male children. More specifically, the situation of the one-child policy decreases the chances of having a son due to restrictions placed on the number of children each couple can have. This is most apparent in the following graph of sex ratio at birth by birth order. We can see that sex ratio at birth tends to increase with parity. In other words, as couples continue to have more children, the ratio of males to females continues to increase to levels greater than the standard ratio of 105 boys to 100 girls. Yet the question remains, why is this true?
A number of proximal reasons have been identified as reasons for high sex ratios at birth favoring boys. These include female infanticide, underreporting and misreporting of female infants, and sex-selective abortion. While female infanticide and underreporting of female births have been shown to account for a small proportion of the skewed sex ratio at birth, recent studies have shown that sex-selective abortion accounts for the greatest proportion of the gender skew. Since the 1980s, the use of ultrasound machines and surgery to induce abortion have been both cheap and widespread in rural areas. After 1982, a large number of ultrasound machines, produced domestically and abroad, flooded the Chinese market. In fact, the steady rise in sex ratios across the birth cohorts since the early 1980s mirrors the increasing availability of ultrasonography during that period. The most widely available modern method for prenatal sex determination is the ultrasound B scan. China manufactured its first ultrasound B machine in 1979. Now, almost all county and township hospitals and family planning service stations in China are equipped with high-quality ultrasound B machines operated by skilled technicians, and such equipment is available in many private clinics. Original plans called for the use of these machines in prenatal monitoring, checking IUD placements, and various other diagnostic purposes. However, couples' strong son preference and the birth limitation program led people to use the ultrasound to ensure the birth of one son. The following figure shows how the sex ratio at birth has increased across China from 1982 to 2005. The rise in the ratio of male to female births follows the spread of access to ultrasound machines that have been disseminated across the country and has become very cheap and available even to the rural poor. Evidence suggests that the popularity of these machines in prenatal sex selection is significantly related to China's increasing sex ratio at birth. Sex-selective abortions after ultrasound scan are late second trimester or third trimester abortions, which involve greater risks to women's health. Many women believe that this risk is worth taking.
The consequences of practices such as sex-selective abortion are profound to Chinese society and the country's future economic progress. Gender discrimination is estimated to have led to 40.9 million missing girls in the year 2000, or almost 6.7% of the total population. Such demographic phenomena leads to an imbalanced sex structure within China's population and exerts an indirect effect on demographic issues as varied as population size, aging, working age population, and marriage. If the sex ratio at birth remains at levels from 2000, and if excess female child mortality continues to exist, by 2030 the estimated population size will only be 84.2% of what it would have been under normal sex ratio at birth and mortality patterns. This indicates that 15.8% of the population will disappear as a result of imbalances in sex ratios. This has severe implications for China's economy. The aging process of the country will accelerate due to the decrease in the number of births, having negative consequences on the country's economic growth and placing additional burdens on the nation's unsound social security systems. The total working age population will also be affected by the reduction of population size. There will also be a likely shortage of marriageable families, bringing about what experts call a marriage squeeze in China.
Between 2000 and 2025, sex-selective abortion and other practices which reduce the number of female offspring are expected to result in an excess of over 31 million more marriage-age males than marriage-age females. The implications for the future of these marriage-age males that will likely remain unmarried is not completely known. Historically, bachelorhood has never been as socially acceptable in China as it has been in Western countries. In his study of this phenomenon, Dr. Nicholas Eberstadt remarked, "Unless it is swept by a truly radical change in cultural and social attitudes toward marriage in the next 2 decades, China is poised to experience an increasingly intense and perhaps desperate competition among young men for the nation's limited supply of brides." While other scholars have hypothesized that increases in homosexuality, polyandry, or mail-order brides are possible, most believe that the most likely scenario is that these Chinese bachelors will never marry and will eventually live in bachelor ghettos. They fear that commercial sex markets will arise in these bachelor ghettos, with the potential for an HIV/AIDS epidemic on a scale previously unimagined.
The Chinese government, as well as provincial administrations, have taken steps to address the imbalances in sex ratios. Improving the status of women as a whole has been viewed as a potential intervention at eliminating the root cause of high sex ratio at birth. The Chinese government pays special attention now to female legal rights and interests, and emphasizes the economic development of women and girls. This is reflected in national laws and regulations concerning women's economic and political status, the right to receive an education, as well as rights concerning marriage, employment, and old age support. Such laws have the overall aim of promoting gender equality. Regulations and policies banning gender discrimination and sex-selective abortion have also been adopted at the central level as early as 1986, when the Ministry of Health and the State Family Planning Commission jointly handed down to all provinces the Notice on Forbidding Prenatal Sex Determination. These agencies then went beyond equipment bans and forbid healthcare professionals from performing sex selection with ultrasound or other medical technologies. Currently, all organizations and individuals are strictly forbidden from performing non-medical fetal sex determination and sex-selective abortion. In rural China, some families have utilized illegal channels, such as visiting private clinics offering ultrasound services, in order to identify a fetus's sex, and have subsequently made efforts to abort a female fetus in order to have a son. The enforcement of such laws is thus difficult to undertake. These laws also fail to address the issues that allow sex-selective abortion to thrive, such as the social value of females.
Recently, China has experimented with media and grassroots organizations in realizing the goal of a more equitable gender ratio. Campaigns such as the Care for Girls campaign to control the rising sex ratio at birth may prove to be successful in the long term. Chinese government has now recognized the problem and included in its 2005 population policy the goal of restoring the sex ratio at birth to normal levels by 2016. To realize this goal, the government has promoted matrilocal marriage in some rural areas in an attempt to alleviate son preference. In addition, with the current demographic and economic transition in China, now would seem to be a good time to enhance the activities of several ongoing government interventions that are focusing on alleviating son preference and changing traditional male culture. Instituting such change and changing the traditional culture of the people of China will undoubtedly take a long time, but with persistence and continued intervention, the Chinese government will hopefully eliminate sex-selective abortion and come closer to achieving gender equality.